we are in this together.
You have gifts that I don't have, and I have gifts that you don't have.
That we must see. Now is the time, because it's when we all get together that we will make the changes that we must make. We are the world.
Welcome to Malcolm and We, heard exclusively on malcolmpresents.com, a streaming platform, heard round the world and beyond into the stratosphere or wherever beyond is, which sort of blows my mind. You have to, well, not in the cities, but when you go out into the desert or the sea, look at the stars and realize how many billions of stars there are, and each of them might have their own planets, and try to tell me what eternity is. But anyway, tonight or today, whenever you're watching, our guest is Debra Emmanuelle. Debra is, which I'm reading, since 1995, is certified as a polarity practitioner. Anyway, and my guest, and my not guest host, my co-host is Jana Larson. Anyway, greeting, ladies.
Greetings. Thank you.
Yeah, Jana, you take over now. I spoke enough.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Malcolm. Yes, Debra Emmanuelle has been studying holistic approaches to healthier living since 1981 and actively teaching self-design classes and workshops in conjunction with her private practice since 1995, when she was certified as a polarity practitioner. She continued to expand her teaching toolbox, her healing toolbox, with ongoing classes in advanced polarity therapy, energy awareness and spiritual counseling, sound healing, crystal healing, cellular and genetic repatterning, and psychosomatic healing and other group healing techniques. Her professional mission as a teacher is to be a facilitator and witness for the refining of the evolution of consciousness for others, assisting all who are willing and open in finding their own meaning, clarity, and purpose through true connection with their core essence and highest potential. Her ordination as a minister of peace in 2010 and her more recent master's degree in sustainability leadership from Arizona State University are important steps in the realization of this mission. And her passion is this, in her words: my passion is to support others in remembering their passions, what they have come here to do. By supporting others in finding their gifts, reclaiming those gifts, and sharing those gifts with the world around them, the world becomes a brighter, kinder place where diversity is the foundational catalyst for true unity. Welcome, Debra. And I just love those words, helping others to find what they are here to do. And I think there are a lot of people who don't even know that they should be searching, and a lot of others who are still trying to find how to find that. And I know I really had that feeling after my divorce and wondering where could I be? My children are grown. What can I do to still help nurture passions in others, and for myself to be able to find that place where I felt like I could do something. So you are needed.
Debra, this reminds me of an old movie. Well, not an old movie. I'm forgetting the name of it, which I forget about a lot of things nowadays. But the movie is about this man who inherits a lot of money, and I think it was a remake of. There are two movies like that, and what it is at the end of the movie, he sort of like loses all his stock. He's really the good guy, but he loses his stock, and then they go to a meeting of the board of a director meeting, and all these little people are there, and some of the larger ones, and he sort of has to plead that they vote for him and not for the big board. And he goes over to the different people and says, "What did you want to be when you were a kid? Go back to your childhood. What did when you were dreaming, when you were 10, 11, 12 years old?"
It sounds like Mary Poppins.
It does.
And like these chairman of the board says, I wanted to be a fireman, I wanted to be something, but it was go back to when when you were young and what were your dreams and aspirations. And I think this is somewhat what you're saying.
Absolutely. And it's interesting that you bring that up because just 2 days ago, I also am working as a grief counselor and a chaplain for hospice. And I was working with somebody who had just lost their wife. And he's like, I am feeling so lost. I don't know what to do anymore. My whole life was hers. She had cancer for 17 years. I don't know what to do. And that's exactly what I said. What did you want to do when you were younger that you haven't done yet? And it's when we lose what we think our purpose has been, there's always another level of purpose for us. And sometimes that loss is a soul contract, I believe, so that we can step into that purpose in a more full and complete way than we would have had we continued linking our purpose to another human being. And there are people come together for a reason, for sure.
Well, my big question to everybody, and it's not an insult, it's what do you want to be when you grow up?
Mm-hmm.
I know, like I've been around for several decades, uh, in fact, several centuries, going back to the 20th century. Yeah, I mean, my favorite expressions, someone has what happened then. I said last century. I seem so old, which I am. But anyway, when I ask people, what do you want to be when you grow up? I know in my growing up, sort of my career, my aims sort of like change. I mean, they're all in the same patterns.
Mm.
They change. I started out in television. I got into radio. I got into podcasting, and now I'm into Zoom casting. I don't know what the next, career will be. I think I'll become a medium and bring back the spirits of, people that have been passed.
Oh, that would be exciting.
Yeah. Because again, and by the way, this show is taking off on a tangential. I mean, it's my problem, but I take off on tangents. And then
Oh,
I know,
you, Malcolm.
It's all related.
yeah, and I know that I've been in several instances, people on somebody's deathbed, and I've
Mm.
seen the moment where they have been declared dead.
Mm-hmm.
And I swear that there's a difference in their bodies
Well,
from the time that they are living till the time they have gone. And I almost see something being lifted out of them, some sort of spirit or energy. And I don't know where that energy goes to.
well, that's an interesting wondering. That absolutely happens. When my brother died in '93, we were all standing, the whole family was standing around his bed. We were singing songs that he loved. And I watched his energy swirl around in his chest. Just it leapt out of his heart. And this was in Maine in February, but we had opened the window just a little crack and he just went right
Yeah.
out the window. And as much as I loved my brother, all I could feel was joy. And I knew that it was his joy finally being freed from his body that had been ill for a long time. And and within about 15 minutes after he died, we started calling people. And my cousin, who lived on some land that my family has owned for 5 generations, when she found out that he was gone, she said, "Oh my God, that's exactly the same time that I saw him flying through around my window. I felt him. I saw him there." And he went and said goodbye to people, and then he left.
Yeah. It's
And
who knows? I mean, it's like me in religion. People ask me, "Do you believe in God?" Intellectually, no. Spiritually, yes. I mean, they're two different divides that I have.
yeah, well, I mean, I am an ordained minister for a number of reasons, and I certainly have faith in higher power. But that all changed for me. Even before my brother died, I had a sister who died. And after she died in 87 at 25 of her cancer treatment, it wasn't the cancer that she died of. I it just rocked my world. I couldn't fathom and I couldn't reconcile what had happened to her. It was a nightmare. And we tried to go to church with my family, and I couldn't even be in a church without absolutely uncontrollably sobbing. I couldn't do it. So I said, okay, that doesn't seem to be the best thing to do right now. But I ended up throwing everything I'd ever learned out. I mean, I emptied myself to a point where I had never meditated before at that point in 87. But I started meditating and I closed my eyes and I saw myself as this great big red balloon that somebody had blown up but not tied. And so it was just going all over the room. And then it landed on my rug in my room. And in this vision that I had, and I looked at it and I said, oh my God, is that all I am now that I've emptied myself out? A piece of rubber laying on the floor? Is that it? And I realized in that moment that I could fill up with whatever I wanted to. I didn't have to take anyone else's beliefs. I didn't have to listen to other people and say, oh, that's the way I have to believe. And systematically, one at a time, I would hear something or read something or see something that just totally inspired me. And I would say, yes, that's something I'm going to fill up with. And then that one I want. And then I would read a book and it'd be like, oh my gosh, yes, this is mine. And I filled up little by little with things that really resonated with me and had nothing to do with my culture or my religion that I grew up with.
Well,
And
this might be contradictory, but the time that I feel the freest is when I feel insignificant. Meaning like when you go to the ocean and I sit by watching the waves coming in and out, with nobody else there. And I realize this has been going on for billions of years.
Mhm.
Or go to the forest and realize, that I'm walking on a whole different civilization that lives underneath the ground. And these have been there. And then I realize how unimportant my life is in the realm of the world. So, but it gives you a certain freedom to feel free to do things that it's not that important. It's not going to change the world. I mean,
Well,
even people who've changed the world, people grow over like like the Hitlers of the world.
yeah.
You have to learn from that and then proceed from there. But it has not destroyed. Again, I'm Jewish. Nothing so far has destroyed the Jewish religion, even through 5 decades of discrimination. We're still strong. As again, that's another thing. I know in my heart I'm Jewish. I relate to my forefathers. I relate to Abraham and Sarah. I go back to then. I think that Jesus was my cousin because he was born from Joseph and Mary with 2 Jewish people, little kids.
Yeah.
They're my cousins. So I feel like that, but I know that what I do in another 1,000 years from now is going to mean nothing.
Well,
you mean something to us now, though, Malcolm.
Oh no, now,
Well, I
No,
think
but I understand what you're saying, but you can be a part of the collective good. But I think it's also okay to realize that we each can have an importance that means something later on, not specifically Jan or Malcolm, but just as part of the overall whole goodness. What do you think?
absolutely,
Am I
because
getting it? We both are, right?
What was that? Sorry.
I said we both are, right? Because we're just both coming at it from our own particular thought patterns and histories and understanding of what we think is the meaning of the world and the meaning of life. And that's what it is finding our foundations that make sense, our belief systems that make sense to us and allow us to not be overwhelmed by the complexities or the horrors, but to still find that joy of life and
Well, yeah,
getting up and doing it every day.
yeah. There's a joy of life, but I think what I'm saying is that we take each decision that we make as being so important.
Oh, yeah. Well,
And
of
in the realm of
course.
things, it's not that important. Like just this week
Right.
alone, we've had
Yeah.
two natural things that we have
Yeah.
absolutely no control over. In New York,
Right.
they had the earthquake. That there
Mhm.
was all of a sudden, and I live in Los Angeles, so all of a sudden, you hear the shaking or feel the shaking, and there's nothing you can do about it. It's inevitable. Same way as the solar eclipse, which of
Mhm.
course I think is much more positive because people came together and said, "Oh my God!" But you realize that we're just visiting, and
Yeah.
Well, and we're here to be caretaking while we're visiting.
right.
Those
Well,
were the
that's your thing. Tell us about what now. To tell us about what you're trying to achieve and how you're trying to achieve it, dealing with different people.
Okay, sure. And before I do that, I just wanted to, if I could, just expand a little bit and complement what you had just shared, because it does feel sometimes like we're insignificant and unimportant. But significant and important isn't necessarily the same thing. If a with this all the new science that's out now and the butterfly effect theory that says that a butterfly in one part of the world can change weather patterns in another part of the world. If that's not insignificant, every thought that we have is created by us and it goes into the web of life and changes the overall frequency of the web of life. And so we really are significant, even when we don't feel very important. And when we feel important, sometimes we take ourselves too seriously. And I think that's what you might be talking about. And that's absolutely, I mean, I can be guilty of that one myself because there's so much to change on the planet. And it's like, I don't have time to just sit around and play. I need to do this.
Well, and
So
then in your work as a minister, you have to be very sensitive and careful about how you receive and how you give words of comfort and all that to actually really help them instead of alarm them or whatever might come out. That's certainly a skill.
well, as an
That probably
impact,
can't be, yeah, it probably can't be, yes, me too. It can't be learned. It's just there to have
yeah,
that sensitivity.
I've learned to just go into my heart, and my heart knows exactly what needs to be said and what the other person is needing as an empath. And
Yeah.
so I don't think about, oh my gosh, how am I going to respond to that? I just open up and something comes out, and it's usually, I mean, almost always just exactly what needs to be said.
You're doing what you should be doing.
And then the other work, I mean, it's all connected to me
Yeah.
because my focus lately has been on water because she's been talking to me, as I said, Mother Earth, and even the rocks have been saying. I was hiking in Sedona one day in 2013, and I'm always in awe. That's why one of the reasons I love being in Sedona, because I can't be here and not be in awe.
Well, you're
And
in such a spiritual place.
yeah, exactly. And it's alive. I mean, everything is alive. And so I was sitting in this meditation and the rocks, and I was thanking the beauty. I was thanking everything that I was seeing all around me. And the rock said, "Do you know how many people walk by us and don't even see us? They don't know we're alive." And I was like, oh, I'm so sorry. That's and that was when they gave me the story that I'll be publishing in the next month and a half or so, about the faces in the red rocks and how they came to be there and what they want us to know now, because they are live beings. Those rocks are conscious. And
Wow.
so that's exciting. The work with the water, I went to the river to meditate. Well, it's been about a month and a half ago now. And I was feeling overwhelmed with all the negativity, all the stuff that's going on, all the pollution, all the contamination that's happening to nature, to our bodies, to all life on the planet. And the Verde River was just flowing. I mean, it was like I could feel her moving as myself. And it felt so calm and so grace-filled. And I just looked at the water moving, feeling that. And I said, how can you flow so gracefully and so consistently in the midst of all this chaos? And what I heard her say was, this is what I do. This is who I am. My purpose is to nurture and nourish all life along my path until I return to oneness in the ocean. And in
Wow.
that moment, I said, oh, yeah, well, that's what I'm doing. That's what my purpose is too. To nurture and nourish all life along her path. She is woman. Everything that we do to the waters, we do to woman, to ourselves. And it was so beautiful. And she actually said, and besides, what you humans, excuse me, are seeing as chaos is not what you think it is. And
It
so
just is.
she got my attention, and I said, okay. She said, the imbalance between the masculine and the feminine on this planet has created a hole in the cosmos. And I knew, she didn't say this, but I knew that since humans put that hole in the cosmos, we are the only ones who can heal it.
Mhm.
And that hole in the cosmos is the misunderstanding between the complementary the reciprocity that is meant to be in the relationships between the masculine and the feminine. We all have masculine and feminine within us, because the positive charge at the atomic level is the masculine and the negative charge is the feminine principles.
Now, on a practical application, you have you're refining the evolution of consciousness for others, assisting
I'm
those
writing
who
a
are
book
willing
about
and
it.
opening
Yeah,
to find
yeah.
their own meaning, clarity, and purpose, and connection, their core essence and highest potential. How do you go about this? And the practical step, let's say I came to you or Yana came to you. What do you teach or what do you impart on us, your knowledge?
Well, I've learned from the time I was 5 years old, when people say, what are you going to be when you grow up? I would say teacher. I knew there was no question. What I've taught and how I've taught over the years has changed dramatically. But what I've learned is that I don't really teach anything. I'm a remembrance facilitator, because every one of us have the memory in us of who we are. We have the coding, we have the memory, and the timing for the awakening of that memory is now. And so all I do is help people to remember by tuning in. And typically what I do is ask questions that will trigger their memory. And when they have an aha moment, which inevitably people do, because as their memory is triggered, they're like, oh my God, yeah, I
Do
do
you
get it.
employ hypnosis as part of it? Because when I went through some rather intensive psychotherapy after, well, I had twins in my first pregnancy, and one baby died inside me, and then the other baby I had to just carry on, and then that baby appeared fine at birth, but then we discovered that she wasn't fine. But during the therapy that I went with to he used hypnotherapy with me to, I mean, it wasn't anything that I had to, he was able to sense kind of where my foundation was, even though I really couldn't put it into words.
Yeah.
And um, so when he was asking me questions to ask, you know, my soul guides or whatever you want to call them, I didn't have to come up with an answer, but it was just one of those, because those things are hard to put into words. You know, I was able to, he asked the question and then I asked the question, but I didn't have to say what I found out. You know, it was for me to contemplate,
Yeah.
contemplative. Is that sort of what you would do, or do you encourage people to be able to, or you know, maybe both, to be able to put it into words? Because that's also important to help identify how to help somebody.
Absolutely. I'm not trained as a hypnotherapist. I've never taken a class in it or actually even been drawn to that. But what I instinctively do is I see the highest potential within the person. I see their higher self and I address their higher self who already knows the answers. It's our personalities and maybe even our egos that have forgotten who we are, but our higher self is a guide to bring us back to that place of remembrance. And so when I
And
address the higher self, and as even as I ask the questions, the answers come from the higher self.
right. And I think a lot of what the hypnotherapy was about was um, getting to that state of relaxation where you could really calm down and filter out other things to help you, you know, consider those really deep questions and find your higher self. And
Yeah.
probably all different kinds of ways, and you obviously know a lot of different ways with sound healing and crystals and all the other things that you do. Last week we had Andrew Kane on. He's been with We the World for a long time, and he's helping to organize the 16th annual Earth Day celebration in New York City. But
Mm.
he's a sound healer, and he came to know that he was that when he went through a very awful medical thing, a brain tumor, and in the process, he learned about the sound healing. So you do that too. He says it just comes to him. He doesn't. Is that what you would
That
describe also?
that I did take a class in sound healing and I got nothing out of it. It
Uh,
didn't help me at all. It was like, I don't get this. Something isn't clicking. And so I was using bowls and
oh, the singing bowls. Yeah.
singing bowls, yeah. And one day I was, well, actually, it was a trade, and I was trading with another practitioner, and they were using my heart chakra bowl right at my head, and he was he was going at it. I mean, he played it differently. I would never have played my bowls that way, and I knew that something wasn't right, but I didn't say anything because I was kind of part in and part out in the session. And then all of a sudden, it felt like my whole skull cracked and the bowl split the lengthwise, it split in two. And it felt like I said, I could hear it through every cell in my body when that happened. And
Wow.
I was a little upset at first. I was like, oh my God, I should have said something. I should have, but but when I meditated on it, what I was told is that I had come to a place of healing my own heart to a point where when I come from my heart, the frequency is actually higher than the bowl can go, and that I don't need the bowls anymore.
Hmm.
And shortly after that, I was doing a session one day in my office space, and I started hearing music. And I work with my eyes closed, so I opened my eyes and looked around, and there was no obvious place where the music was coming from, and I realized it was coming from me.
Wow.
And it was just, it's automatic. And when I work, the sound comes through me, whatever frequencies are needed, whether it's for clearing or opening or healing, whatever the case might be, the sound comes through me and it just happens. And
That's wonderful. Deborah, we're running out of time. I have a question. Now, how do you work? Do you do groups? Do you do over the telephone? You do over the internet? Is it one-on-one sessions? How do you, and how do you feel most comfortable, departing your information?
all of the above, and I do them just as equally. I work online with COVID. That was a gift to all of us in many ways, as far as that goes. And so most of my sessions now are online.
Online?
And I do teach classes online as well, and do group, the energy of the group and individuals. I used to have my own retreat center, and I would interview each person who was coming on the retreat. It was a small, 7 was max, but so they were intimate, beautiful retreats. And I would interview each person for 2 hours, find out where they are, where they want to be, what's not working, what is working, and then choreograph a retreat specific for that group, so
Yeah,
that each got exactly what they needed. And
well,
oh my
remember,
God, I love that.
I remember years ago when I was, more like involved with group therapy. There were therapists that would do it on the outdoors. They would get, their therapy group, again, 5, 6 people, and they do hiking.
Yeah.
Or do something at the ocean, and they would walk, and then the feelings would come out. And the thing that I noticed when well, I was into marathon running for a while, but I noticed that you see so much when you run and you walk that you never saw when you're driving in the car. I mean, there were streets that I went into Los Angeles, that I've been driving for years. And all of a sudden, now that I'm running or walking, and I would see these buildings and these architectural, glories I've never seen before, the nature, even where I live right now. And I walk, all of a sudden, each day when I walk, I see something different, another plant, and or the raccoons or squirrels. But anyway, before we leave, tell the people how they could reach you, or either by telephone, email, or
Yeah, I have a website. It's sedonasoulintegration.com, all one word. And my email is my name, Debra Emmanuelle, spelled Debra and Emmanuelle @gmail.com.
And soul is spelled Soul.
SOU,
Sedona's.
soul
So-
integration. Yep. It's about bringing our soul and our beingness all into oneness.
Balance.
yeah. Again, years ago, in another world, when I lived in New York, I was really much into Buddhism.
Mhm.
And when we would go to a meeting with the Swamis, what you would do is you do the Om Shanti Shanti at the each meeting, and each meeting basically it was supposed to get you into the rhythm of the world, that the world itself had a certain beat, a certain pulse, and you did this for 5 minutes, and it was so calming.
Yeah.
And I used to do I still do transcendental meditation, TM, Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. And back in the old days, and I used to have a full beard, which was dark. And in the 70s, I used to wear a Nehru jacket
Oh,
and,
yeah.
and love beads, and my hair was longer. So they used to call me Maharishi Mahesh Malcolm. Anyway, I thank you very much.
Well, thank you. Thank you. It's been an honor both to talk to both of you, Yana and Malcolm. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to doing additional shows with you.
Yes, we can definitely have that conversation. I'm open to that.
Okay. Yana, thank you very much for what did I say? For co-hosting.
And finding all these great people to meet
Right.
and talk with.
And Deborah, again, it's a pleasure meeting you, and thank you again. You're listening to Malcolm. You're listening to Malcolm and We, heard exclusively on malcolmpresents.com. Guys, have a great week.
Thank you so much. Bye.
The objective of the organization We the World is to facilitate cooperation on a global scale amongst groups and individuals dedicated to implementing solutions to the many challenges we face on the planet at this time.